I joined this trucking company in the beginning of April after I had spent about 2.5, 3 years doing other kinds of CDLA work, mostly side dump work locally. So I had a decent working knowledge of how to drive a large semi, but not a lot of tractor trailer unhooking and no docking, some backing, mostly into just our parking lot. And I knew it would be tough, and I thought that the hardest part was going to be dealing with like loneliness on the road and long-term staying away from home. But for financial reasons, I decided I should do this. So I got with this company, and they had the standard like 5 to 7 day, it was like 5 days for me, training period in the classroom. And we went over slides with the trainer in there, and basically it was a refresh of a few of the standard things that you would learn at CDL school. We went over the Atlas a small amount. We did some simulations. Just their basic expectations and basic safety. We did some road backing tests, a road test, and some tight corner testing. And then I was assigned a trainer that would take me out anywhere between 3 and 21 days on the road, because I had already had time in a CDL truck for some years. I was considered an advanced student. So my training with him lasted for 5 days, and he said he thought I was done if I wanted to be. Now, this particular driver that was training me actually wasn't an employee with the company I was with, which I thought was a little odd, but he was working for an owner-operator that was contracted with them. The other differences between us were that he was on a dedicated route where you circulate through mostly the same companies and states over and over again with very few variations. And he did not have a reefer, and I was signed up to do reefer. So because he was on a dedicated route and he knew his routes like the back of his hand, he did not have to do any trip planning at all. So we didn't practice that. He did show me very well how to slide my tandems and hook and unhook. I got a lot of practice with that, and I got more practice with backing. And that was good because I drove a side dump before, and they're not as long. At least the ones we had, they were not as long as a standard 53-foot trailer with the tractor. So after 5 days, he said, "I think you're ready." And I was glad, because that meant that I could get off of the training pay and onto earning the real money. And I needed it. I had bills coming up. There had been a gap in my employment, and so I really needed to be earning. So it was me and my dog. I loaded up my truck when I got it assigned, and was assigned to my first run on a Monday. So it was either a Monday or Tuesday. I believe it was Monday. So I got sent to go to the western mountains of Virginia, near DC. That was my first drop off. And I was to pick up in my home area in the middle of the country. So I went and picked up, and I set my tandems all the way forward when they had loaded me, like they said I should do for the weight. And then I knew that I was supposed to go scale, but I wasn't used to the tablet and the way that they run you on your own load when it's one way. I was used to seeing what my trainer had done, and everything for him was a little different. It was set up a little bit differently. So when they sent me this assignment, the first suggested fuel stop was in a town about an hour away. And I knew that that fuel stop had a scale. And I thought that the intention was, we figured out the best route for you based on our co-pilot navigation system, and we would like you to go to this one to also scale out. So I did that instead of going to the closest one in the city. Well, when I got there, I got on the scale and realized that I was overweight, which you can't, so you can't take the risk of going halfway across the country because, if you get stopped, you'll get huge fines and all this other stuff. So I called up my manager and I told him, and he said, why didn't you go to the closest one? And I tried to explain, and I told him, hey, I'm a brand new over-the-road driver, so some of this stuff is new for me. I'm just learning the ropes. Sorry about that. So he said, well, go back and have the shipper see if they can adjust your load. And I went back there, and they said some snide remark about, well, we can't help you learn how to set your tandems. I was like, okay. Anyway, ignoring that, please do what you can. And they took about an hour and they readjusted the load. And this time I noticed that actually it ran a whole lot more smoothly. So I think whatever they did was necessary because it really balanced it out for me. Then I did go to the closest scale and I found out that I was still overweight somehow. Now, for some background info, my tractor is, it has a APU and a refrigerator. And then I had brought a bunch of food so that I didn't have to waste my money on truck stop food. I loaded my refrigerator and I brought a bunch of canned food. And I brought a lot of clothes because the weather in our area varies quite a bit. In spring, it can be very cold, it can be very warm. You never know. But so you need, several seasons of clothes. I got a message. So I thought that I had done something wrong. I thought that I had brought too much stuff into my tractor and it was my fault that it was overloaded. So I called the manager again, and by this time it is late afternoon and I haven't even gotten out of my city basically, on this long trip, and I'm feeling kind of bad. I call him up and I tell him, hey, it's still overweight. He goes, well, let me give you the number for this gal that's a mentor. She's been with us for like 10 years and she'll help you out. So I was like, okay, that sounds good. So at the truck stop, I called her. She was very nice. Told her what was up. She said, well, we could try moving your fifth wheel, which is not what they usually recommend. But in this case, we could do that if you're not comfortable risking driving overloaded until your fuel burns off and that some of that weight is reduced. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And she walked me through the steps because I hadn't done that myself. They didn't want us doing it at our last job. And it wouldn't budge. The fifth wheel would not budge. And she said, well, they're pretty stubborn. I was like, okay, that's, understandable. So she said, if you're not comfortable, you can take the load back. But if you want to try it, you can use this app called Trucker Path. And it helps me out a lot. It's so worth the money because you have to pay monthly for it. And I was like, this is my first load. I really don't want to be a wimp here. I want to do a good job and make some money and not be a hassle. So I will go ahead and try this Trucker Path app. And I set it up and I paid the money. And it said that there was a way station in so many miles and whether or not it would be closed. So I was able to get through Iowa without getting stopped at a way station. It was closed. And that's good because actually there's been a lot of way stations in Iowa that are open. So I thought by the time I got to the boundary for Illinois that I probably burned off enough fuel to come in at the level that I needed to be because I was heavy on the front end. I was heavy on the steers and the drives. So I got over the river and I saw a sign in blue for rest area. And apparently there was some signs under it that said no semis, but I didn't notice it. And so I turned up that road and I realized, oh, this is unique. It's not going to a traditional looking rest area. What's happening? And there was a little like circular area off to the side, a little loop around. And so even though it wasn't really made for vehicles my size, I looked and there was no one parked there, and I figured out that I could take it and not really damage anything. I just ended up like putting my wheels on the gravel at the edge, and I was able to loop back around, but I was kind of in the wrong direction. So I stopped at the stop sign and I looked at the trucker app again, and it said that way station coming up in 2 miles was likely to be closed within an hour. So I was like, hey, I can wait an hour, you know, I'll be fine if I just wait an hour. It'll probably be closed. No big deal. But a sheriff drove by, and I thought, oh my God, I'm so dead now. But he didn't stop. He kept going down the hill toward where the actual rest area was. And I thought, oh, hell no, I'm not going to wait around here and get caught. So I got out of there as quickly as possible, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to have to take whatever happens. I've come this far, maybe it'll work. And it did. I went through the way station when it was open, and it said that I wasn't overweight. Great. Things are looking up. Then I get into Indiana, and it's time for me to stop for the night. My dog and I have a really great walk at this area behind the truck stop near like this large, not a pond, but like a reservoir. It was really lovely. The weather was great. We had a great time. And then I stayed the night. Everything went fine. The next day, I get my pre-trip done, and I start the engine, because you should do that when you do a pre-trip to make sure things also sound right, not just look right. And then the idle went off, and I finished prepping to be ready to go, making sure I had all of my map on my Copilot on my tablet ready to go. Also, my map on my Trucker Path app ready to go, because I wanted to have two going at once for backup. And I started the engine again, and it would not turn over. I tried again, it wouldn't turn over. I tried turning off the battery button on the floorboard next to the seat and back on, and it still wouldn't start. Called my manager, and he said, okay, we're gonna send a mechanic over from the Speedco that's sitting here at the Loves and see what they can do for you. And they came out and said, well, we think it's the starter. We're gonna have you drop your trailer and bring in the truck. So I did that, and they said, well, we can't have you stay in the truck while we're working on it. So my dog and I went outside for a while, but it started to rain, so we had to sit under the awning at the front door of the Loves for like 3 hours, which was really not pleasant, but there was no other place to go out of the rain. And then half an hour or so after that, the truck was ready to go. They'd fixed it. I hooked back up, and I went and saw that I had a message on the tablet. And my manager had said that, and this was supposed to be for an hour before I had checked it, that someone was coming to swap trailers with me. Well, I'd seen it an hour later, right? So I called him up and told him, and he goes, oh, well, I'm not sure what to do now. And I said, well, I'm ready to go now. They fixed the truck. And he's like, okay, well, if you're ready to go, then I'll just reassign you the same load. And so he did that. And I went on my merry way. And then I got into the mountains in Pennsylvania, and my ABS started acting up. But I knew that my service brakes and my Jake brakes worked fine. So I knew that I could manage getting through the mountains as long as I paid attention, you know, didn't go too fast and all that stuff. So I get out of that, and I get closer to my destination. And I'm at this point, I'm unfortunately hitting the DC area at about 4 in the afternoon, which is basically their rush hour. So it was getting really busy, and at one point I noticed that my fuel was getting low. And remember, I'm a brand new over-the-road truck driver. Like, this is my first experience. I'm going way further than the recruiter had told me that I would. They told me I would never go further east than Pennsylvania or Georgia. And I know Georgia is sort of more eastern than Pennsylvania, but I had told him I didn't want to go into New Jersey or New York. With this particular route, it was supposed to be mostly regional and one-ways. So, you know, they were sending me like further east and into this major metropolis area with this crazy traffic. Well, another thing that I didn't realize was, and this was because we had barely done any trip planning to no trip planning when I was with my trainer. There are almost no truck stops for like 60 miles around the area that I needed to go to the consignee. So I was having a really tough time. I tried pulling over a few times to look up a truck stop, but with the Trucker Path app, it would tell me where it sounded like a truck stop, but it was really a place that they sold diesel, but it wasn't a place that was set up for a semi to park. So a couple of times that happened, and I had to get myself out of some sticky situations to make sure I didn't damage the equipment or anyone else. And at one point it sent me onto an actual residential road, and that was really, really awful. I won't even discuss how bad that was. It made me think I would be fired. So by the time that happened, I thought, oh, I am so screwed. I just need to find a way to either get some fuel or drop off this load, and you know, I'm probably done, and I need to tell them, hey, I don't want to be stranded here. Just get me a ride home. Like, get me a rental car home, you know. So I was pretty damn upset, very tired and stressed. It was a lot of traffic. It was just a lot for someone who's never been over the road before. And I had never been in, another thing is I had never been in the mountains or in intense traffic like that when I was with my trainer. So all of this new stuff was happening, and it was night. Okay, so I feel that I'm starting to run out of fuel, but I don't realize yet how many miles I actually have left on my tank that I can go. It ends up being more than I think, which is great. Well, I get so low after all of these places that it's trying to tell me to go, and that I just figure, okay, I'm either gonna end up on the shoulder for the night waiting for someone to come tow me away, or I'm gonna make it to the receiver. Well, I make it to the receiver, but I make it to the receiver at the bottom of the red of E. Like fumes. I'm talking fumes. That's how I made it there. I made it there, and this nice gentleman, truck driver, was helpful to me to back in, because at this point I was so utterly exhausted and stressed out, I could barely think straight. So he helped me to back into the dock. I went into the office, I gave them the paperwork, they signed it. And because I thought that I would be fired, I did not even attempt to upload the paperwork into the tablet, and that is how you get paid with this company. You have to upload the paperwork into their tablet system under the assignment, and then they will issue you your payment when payday comes at the end of the week. As long as it's in by their cutoff, and their cutoff is like Monday or Tuesday or something. So honestly, I don't even know if, now that I think about it, because this was like Tuesday night, I believe, or maybe Wednesday, I don't even know at this point if it would have gotten through, now that I think about it. So I am irate at the number of things that have gone wrong and how much difficulty I've had, because I felt that they did not properly assign me with someone who would have been able to show me exactly what it was to run a reefer. And if you're a reefer driver, you know that there is a whole lot more to do than if there is a dry van involved. You have to be checking the temperature all the time. You have to make sure that it has enough of its own diesel in its own tank. You have to make sure that you are cleaning out the trailer when it's unloaded, or when you pick it up, you don't know how long it's been sitting, so you have to make sure that it's clean, which involves going to truck washes. And there are all of these things that you know if you're a reefer driver. In my training classes, they did not go over those things. They might have said, you have to make sure it's clean. They did not say, here is the paperwork for that. And they definitely did not give me, in the training on the computer, they did not tell me, please read this manual on the handbook for the reefer division. there is a tab on there that says TCU manual. And in my mind, when I had learned how to pre-trip the unit and set the set temp and learned to make sure that it had enough fuel, that was what I needed to do. Well, there was a whole lot more that I did not know. And because it said TCU manual and not TCU division handbook, I did not click on that particular tab, and no one brought it up to me. So that part I didn't know about. Okay, keep that in mind. Well, so I've unloaded this first load, and it has been a hell of a trip, and I think that I'm fired. So I am really upset at how many things could have gone better. One of them was I found out from my manager after the fact that there is a 450-pound exemption for weight in most areas because I have an APU. And I said that would have been a whole lot better to know beforehand. There was all kinds of little things like this that he failed to tell me until after the fact. Very frustrating, very stressful, unnecessarily stressful. You need to be upfront with people about these things that you're saying are so damn important. You need to be upfront. I felt like I was having to train myself like back when I worked at DaVita. Oh my God, don't even get me started with that, please. Class action lawsuit they had, by the way. So they're like, okay, well, we're gonna send a tow truck so that you can, I told them I'm not driving it. They said, we'll send a tow truck so you can get fueled up, and then we'll get you to a hotel and we'll figure out how to get you home. No, that tow truck took me, first of all, the tow truck guy called and said, there's a fuel station like a half a mile away. I said, I've looked everywhere, there isn't. So he took me to a fuel station. It was not for semis. Fuel trucks, the short ones, yes. But this one was not meant for that because it was so tight, he practically wrapped it around the pole. But he got it in there and we filled it up. And then I said, I can't sleep out here. I'm not driving this thing. I was determined at that point. So he towed us, me and the dog sat in the back on the bed here, and he towed us to the parking lot behind the towing company. And that's where we spent the night. And then the next morning I got a hold of the manager again, and he said, well, we're looking at getting you a hotel, and but we can't get you a rental car to come home. Like, if you're quitting, you're just gonna have to find your own ride. And I was like, oh hell no, I don't have the money to spend on a rental car to get all the way home. I just got into this job because I needed money really quickly in between jobs, and I can't be doing that, so he said, well, some conversations happened with my family, with the manager, and they said they could have me take the truck to a dealer up near Baltimore, and then they would fix the ABS system. And I said, okay, well, it's not like I don't want to work. I do want to work. I don't feel supported as a new driver. I tried to explain many times that these things are new to me and I'm not going to understand everything right out the gate. And I don't know why I was sent to do this with very little representation of what it was actually going to involve. And it's not like I didn't do any work up front. I mean, I had watched in the past, and on my downtime, I had watched a lot of videos on different aspects of truck driving, trying to learn things that, I didn't feel were covered elsewhere. So it's not like I was just being lazy. Like, I was really attempting to educate myself, okay? Well, so they had me go to this dealership, and it was an industrial park. And I got there at night when they were closed. So I parked the truck and I took the dog out to go to the bathroom. This is like 10, 11 at night on a Friday. Thursday or Friday night. And there's this biker gang at the end of the circle getting drunk, playing their music loud and revving their engines and racing around the street. And they've seen me now, this woman outside alone in the dark in an industrial park with her dog. So So I'm not feeling real safe, you know. I'm not like, this is probably not the best place to be. But they didn't give me an option for a hotel tonight. So I had to stay there. And that was not a good night. And that because like an hour later, I'm starting to drift off and I hear the cops chasing them in the industrial park. I hope they caught them. So then the next morning I go into the office when they're open and I told them what happened. They said, oh yeah, there was a chop shop group that was here a couple times recently. I'm like, great, might have been the same people out here doing illegal car theft and, you know, pillaging automobile parts and shit. I really don't want to stay here another night. So I told my manager, I said, hey, they're gonna try to get to the diagnostic today, but they don't know how long it'll be, and I need to get somewhere safe. So we said, okay, let me look into getting you a hotel room. Hours later, they contact me, okay, we got approval, we're gonna get you an Uber, and we're gonna put you in this hotel. I'm like, okay. So now this is Saturday. So I get in a decent hotel. It's like a Hilton DoubleTree. It's pretty decent. It's in a business area with a bunch of government buildings. And we get in there. It's a decent room, but there are yeah, no, this was the hotel that was fine. I'm thinking of the other one. So this hotel is fine. And what's not fine is how many days we were there. So we were there from Sunday night until I think Wednesday night. Wednesday or Thursday. We were there like a long time. And I kept calling and trying to find out what was going on, and nobody would answer, and I'd leave a message and they wouldn't call me back. And then finally got a hold of them and they said, we need more time on the vehicle, we're going to take it for a road test. So much time went by, and I swear to God, they spread it out because they wanted that money, because their sign said they were paid $125 an hour at the counter at this place. I'm like, yeah, they're probably incentivized to spread out this repair as long as possible. On the second to last day I was at this hotel, they tell me, oh no, the third to last day,